Hey there everyone, welcome back to another Game Vault video. As always, I'm Captain Beefy with the Game Vault, and we're going to talk about this article I found on IGN. It states here that the blockbuster games bubble has burst. So, let's cue up the music and we'll get right to it. Alright, so this is a subject that I find near and dear to my heart because I honestly believe that we are looking at a major shift in the gaming industry right now. Now, whatever's driving this shift, it's a lot of things combined. Part of it is the DEI initiative that's being pushed in so many games. That's a lot of players are pushing back against it. Part of it is the lack of quality in games that's being released. Games are coming out unfinished and unpolished. Another part of it is the aggressive microtransactions that we're finding in games. A lot of players find that distasteful. And last but not least, a lot of these companies are going for these GAAS, the gas games, the games as a service, live service games, which are absolutely awful. People don't like those games. I'm sorry. Most players, if you ask them, don't like live service games. Now, there are players that love them, and there are a few out there that are hugely successful, and they have massive fan bases right now. But you're not going to pull away from those fan bases with a new one. I'm sorry. I think those markets are topped out right now. So let's look at this article a little bit and talk about it. All right, the video game industry is currently in the thralls of a paradox. For players, it could be argued we're in one of the greatest times for gaming. There's incredible breadth and choice across consoles, handhelds, and PCs made ever more accessible through gaming subscription services like Xbox Game Pass and PlayStation Plus. But from an industry perspective, things could not be more dire. More and more studios seem to be closing, original IPs are being scrapped mid-development, and vast legions of game developers, programmers, artists, and animators have been cut loose. To put it simply, the AAA video game bubble has finally burst. And boy, has it burst. We've watched thousands and thousands of people lose their jobs this year. We've watched several studios close down, downsize, so forth and so on. We've watched major title after major title either fail or underperform this year, time and time again. And it hasn't stopped. And it's probably going to continue on into 2025 unless things change in this industry. Across the past 2 years, over 23,000 jobs in the video game industry were lost, with a staggering 6,000 in January 2024 alone. Over 30 video game development studios have ceased operating, including Arcane Austin, Volition, and most recently Firewalk Studios. What's worse, this trend only shows signs of continuing rather than diminishing. How did we get here? Some analysts have concluded these closures and redundancies are a necessary remedy to companies having overextended themselves in response to inflated demand in the market during the COVID-19 pandemic. While that's undeniably a factor, I believe the truth lies in other long gestating issues within the AAA project bubble. Yeah, a lot of people point to the COVID-19 thing, but I mean, that wasn't like it lasted 10 years. I mean, it was what? A year in some areas, people were locked up, locked down, whatever you want to call it. I mean, and it wasn't everybody all over the place. It was a few states really locked down for that long. Some states, like my state of Florida, was only a month or so before we were back out working in no time. I was back to work in a couple weeks, actually. But so, that's part of the problem, but there is a lot of bloat in the industry, I'm sure, a lot of middle and upper management positions that could be and need to be cut, a lot of departments that need to be downsized, and you could shave off positions there. A lot of this outsourcing that I'm seeing, these consultancy firms and all that, they can probably be cut off completely. I don't see them bringing anything worthwhile to the table. In fact, some of them are so cancerous that if a company's name is associated with a game, you immediately have people not going to buy that game because of it. That's kind of crazy. Anyway, just 5 years ago, AAA projects' average budget ranged 50 to 150 million. Today, the minimum average is 200 million. Call of Duty's new benchmark is 300 million, with Activision admitting in the Competition and Market Authority's report on AAA development that it now takes the efforts of 1.5 studios just to complete the annual Call of Duty title. Are they going to be able to keep up that pace? It's a good question. It's far from just Call of Duty facing ballooning costs. In the same CMA report, an anonymous publisher admits that development costs for one of its franchises reached $660 million, with $550 million of marketing costs on top. That is a $1.2 billion game. To put that into perspective, Minecraft, the world's best-selling video game of all time, has, of last year, only achieved $3 billion. It took 12 years to reach that figure, having launched in 2011. The realities of these budgets mean entire publishing houses are massively overstretched and are now desperately facing the consequences. If their developers' huge projects don't make money immediately, they must die. Sega sci-fi shooter Super Game Hyenas was in development at Creative Assembly for 7 years, and just as it was publicly playable for the first time via alpha testing, it was canceled. The reason? Sega preemptively concluded Hyenas couldn't make its money back. Blizzard's survival project Odyssey had a similar trajectory. Odyssey would have been the studio's first new IP in 8 years, and given the market's love for games like Minecraft and Rust, such a gaming titan should have undoubtedly made waves with the project. When Microsoft acquired Activision Blizzard, the project was swiftly killed with little reason publicly given beyond inconveniences in switching engines to increase player count on the servers. Oof. I'm going to say it, I don't like Microsoft buying up all these studios. I don't think it's good for the industry. I don't think it's good for the studios. We haven't seen Microsoft put out any bangers, really, since the Xbox Series X come out. There's been some decent games, but no real bangers, no defining games, that for the generation. And, PlayStation's had some good ones, but again, they're kind of a little lackluster too. This whole generation's been underwhelming, to say the least. And I'm hoping that we see a change here coming up. I don't know why it seems so underwhelming. Am I expecting too much now? I don't know, I don't know. There's been some great games, and don't get me wrong, there have been some fantastic games. I've had a lot of fun with some stuff, but overall, it just seems like it's been a little underwhelming, Anyway, these examples of the current AAA publishing cull reflect a deep-rooted fear to engage with anything new and original, with publishers perhaps more risk-adverse than ever to stray out of their established IP safety bars. But even well-known IP that could be worth millions in sales and revenues being left to rot. Despite owning Infamous, Jak and Dexter, Killzone, Resistance, and Sly Cooper, to name a few entries in PlayStation's sprawling dormant library, Sony CFO Hiroki Totoki recently claimed that the company lacks enough original IP to consolidate itself as a true gaming powerhouse. I mean, yeah, they've got some good stuff there they're not tapping into. What Totoki may mean is that Sony's older catalog of library IP does not fit the mold of what every publisher has been mindlessly chasing for the better part of the decade. The next big live service money printer. It's difficult to imagine much fanfare for a Sly Cooper reboot, where Bentley and Murray are purchased to play, grand heists are season pass bonuses, and worlds are delivered half-baked instead of fully formed. It's undeniable that on the same level, the video game market has changed forever because of the live service model. New video games don't just have to compete with new rivals, but somehow find space in an increasingly crowded market dominated by decade-old titles like Fortnite and Grand Theft Auto Online. Games which will continue to hold higher player counts than many of the top-sold games of the last few years. But live service titles require investment not only of money, but time to find their audience, neither of which was afforded to Firewalk Studios' Concord. Yeah, Concord was a miserable failure. Less than 2 weeks, pulled from the store. Everybody was refunded, and then shortly afterward, the studio was closed. They're not bringing it back free to play, nothing like that. Concord's dead in the water. And yeah, the live service titles, yeah, they're lucrative, man. They're lucrative, but here's the problem I face as a gamer now is these big games eat up so much time, and they become a job in the end. And I'm really thinking as I move forward in my life here, and start buying more games and all that I'm probably going to start leaning towards less open world games and more linear, fun, action-based games. Stuff that doesn't have season passes, stuff that's not going to be constantly updated and serviced, things like that. I think Ark might be my last big game. Now, I might go with GTA 6. That might be just something fun for live streaming and all that with the guys. But even that, I don't, at this point, I don't know. I'd almost rather, I've got a backlog of games that'll take me 10, 20, 30 hours to beat each of these games. And that would be fun because I can go through and rip through these games in a week or two, and have a good time, make some content, have some fun, go back to it, do New Game Plus later on, after I do something else. Stuff like that. It'd be a lot of fun. Instead of, it's like, oh man, I gotta go back to work sometimes it feels like. And that's kind of crazy. A game shouldn't feel like work. It should be fun, right? Anyway, the recent fate of Concord's Firewalk Studios serves as a microcosm for the increasingly bleak outlook for the next few years in video game development. Concord was Firewalk's first game, its baby in many ways, an 8-year development bolstered by a Sony acquisition with a reported cash injection of $200 million plus. PlayStation reportedly believed it had the next Star Wars-esque franchise on its hands, but the game struggled significantly across both its beta testing period and launch, and was soon completely shut down by Sony, with Firewalk closed for business shortly after. Concord's downfall happened faster than any other failed game of the live service era. Just a decade earlier, though, a similar disaster was plaguing Blizzard's Diablo 3. The crippling Error 37 message made the game unplayable, and fans worldwide decried the absolute failure to launch. Soon after, the game's real money auction house left players with a foul taste in their mouth, and Diablo 3's reputation was roasting in the fires. But rather than abandoning it, Blizzard not only repaired the game and removed the auction house, but fundamentally upgraded and evolved it into Diablo 3 2.0, with its Reaper of Souls expansion finally cementing its comeback as a brilliant game. And let me tell you, Diablo 3 was fantastic. It's a similar story we've seen with CD Projekt Red's hard-fought battle to win Cyberpunk 2077 fans back. We saw it with No Man's Sky as well. Sometimes you can win them back. If the alleged $200 million plus budget had been lowered, the project direction refocused as a spark for a new universe rather than a big bang, it doesn't seem hard to believe that Concord may have found its audience with some Blizzard or CDPR-like shepherding from Sony. Many projects akin to Concord could be the medium-sized successes they deserve to be, if not for the financial corners these publishers have found themselves backed into. Not that such financial corners are anything publishers should always attempt to navigate, gamers are beginning to wane interest in these monolithic projects. You need only look at the top-rated games of 2024 list, whereas 2023 awards lists were littered with AAA titles from 500-strong studios. 2024 shows a revitalized hunger for a smaller, more independent spirit. Arcade machine throwback UFO 50, the Metroidvania-esque Animal Well, poker, roguelite, Bellatro, and text-based pixel art adventure The Crimson Diamond are just some of the games you'll see appearing again and again on these lists. Despite their numerous differences, they share a commonality: a smaller, more refined experience that recalls earlier eras of gaming, where marriages of mechanics and storytelling were key through technological craftiness rather than literal country-sized game worlds. The nostalgia they create for older video game generations are central to the heart of their creation. They just want you to pick them up and have a good time now and again. The slow but increasingly clear pivot of video game audiences to a potential indie game renaissance is a clear message to publishers that if everything is bigger and bolder, who possibly has the time to play more than 1 or 2 games each year? That's not to undercut the difficulty in getting these independent titles made. UFO 50's Mossmouth LLC team consisted of 6 developers working over many years, while both Animal Well and The Crimson Diamond shared similar stories of being crafted by solo developers, Billy Basso and Julia Minamata, respectively, over several years. Even a smash hit like Lethal Company started life as a one-man band developer, Zeekers, learning to develop games on Roblox before expanding his knowledge. Unbelievable. That's amazing. All of these developers put everything they had over several years of their lives into creating these games, not in pursuit of money, but because of a passion. That's why they don't need humongous worlds of 300-plus side quests to tick off. These games all feel like lean enjoyment machines. That's great. Anyway, it feels like the top end of the video game industry is currently faced with 2 paths to choose from. The first is the status quo. It can continue to engorge on bigger budgets with impossibly open yet incredibly empty worlds filled with 80-plus hours of content that has about 10 hours of meaning to its players, or hopelessly pursue that live service train which left the station about 5 years ago with late passengers wondering why the money isn't rolling anymore. these billion-dollar gambles could pay off, but it's becoming less and less likely. Or they could opt for a second path and take a page out of Julia Minamata, Billy Basso, and Zeker's books, a wider breadth of projects, smaller in scope and scale, with a refined focus on gameplay mechanics and perhaps a return to older style of video games long dormant. Projects where developers aren't afraid to take weirder choices and unexpected left turns lest they crash their $400 million ship into a mixed to decent initial reception. Maybe studios can remember that we used to play video games because they were fun, not because of their bigger than last year maps, carpeted by denser high-resolution grass than you walk across to finish another piece of side content that pushes you one digit closer to the 100% completion. Man. So, yeah, I don't always agree with IGN, and but this one's pretty good here. Who wrote this? Sab Ashley. Good article there by you. I agree with a lot of this in here. Probably most of it, I would say. I don't really find anything wrong with this article here. Yeah, we're looking... Things have got to change in this industry for this industry to continue because it's broken right now. And there's going to be some more failures. There's some other big games coming down the pike that are destined to fail. I think Assassin's Creed Shadows is about to hit in February unless they delay it again. I have a feeling Ubisoft is really going to tank and bottom out. They may have to sell off some IPs. They may have to go private. I don't know what they're going to have to do. Square Enix looks like they're in a little bit of trouble right now, but I think they're smartening up a little bit, and they're going to not partner up so much with Sony and release their game on multiple platforms at the same time, which makes sense. I mean, if you're going to spend that much money developing a game, why limit your audience, right? Why limit your audience? Console exclusives, yeah, they help sell consoles and all that. And if you have your own in-house studio, I get it. That's fine. Make it a console exclusive, at least for a year or whatever. But you're going to make more money if you offer it across both consoles and PC, and maybe even Switch too, if the Switch can handle it, right? Anyway, let me know what your thoughts are down below. Do you think the Blockbuster Games bubble has burst? I do. Anyway, don't forget to leave a like on the video, subscribe to the channel, and ring that bell for notifications. I'll see you guys next time. Until then, peace.